So, I was able to rewatch Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis, and I'm sure everybody has the same question on their minds, and that is, do I stand by my comments that that fight was the biggest robbery of the year? Well, here's the thing. Maybe my execution of this wasn't the best, but while I was making the video, I had the thought, it would be funny to call it the biggest robbery of the year, because, obviously the year just started. There hasn't been any robberies, really, so it would be a good opportunity to use that joke. But I think it's safe to say people didn't really get it. But like I said, I'll go ahead and take responsibility for that one. The fight was not a robbery. I had it 3-2 Strickland watching it live, but it was razor close, and a close decision you don't agree with is not a robbery, of course. And everybody knows that, except when it comes to Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. I don't think people are ever going to stop calling that a robbery. But just wanted to clear all that up. Now, upon re-watching the fight, it really comes down to round 3. Strickland definitely won rounds 1 and 5. Du Plessis definitely won rounds 2 and 4. So it's all dependent on how you scored round 3. Now, put a gun to my head, I might be leaning towards Dricus just a little bit. Not because he got takedowns, not because he was marching forward, but because he landed the more impactful shots. He caused more damage. Now, it has been really interesting to see people debating the judging criteria like people argue the Second Amendment. And the thing is, most people are just dead wrong with the things they're saying. It's just, this whole judging criteria thing is an epidemic. Nobody understands it. Not the fighters, not the judges, it seems like. The commentators are just all completely clueless about it. Here's all everybody needs to know. The number one scoring criteria that you need to look at is effective striking. Legal blows that have immediate or cumulative impact, with the immediate weighing more heavily. So, who is damaging their opponent more? Then you have effective grappling, which is defined as the successful execution of takedowns, submission attempts, reversals, and the achievement of an advantageous position that has the potential to contribute to the end of the match, with a heavy caveat here being that it shall be noted that a successful takedown is not merely a changing of position, but the establishment of an attack from the use of the takedown. So purely getting someone from standing to the ground does not count as effective grappling. You need to establish an attack with your takedown, whether that be landing effective strikes or going for a submission. That is all you need to know. Everything else is hooey, a bunch of nonsense. You rarely will ever have to look at any other of the criteria. So now that that's out of the way, we can now look at this fight objectively. And if you're just looking at round 3, which is what I think this fight comes down to, I don't think there's a definitive answer to who won that round, because it comes down to how you judge each individual strike and how damaging you think each one was. So, you know what? Fuck it, they tied. That's how I'm categorizing this. But if there isn't going to be an immediate rematch, which, based on what Dana White has said, I don't believe there will be, so who's next? Well, the only fight I truly care about seeing at this point is Israel Adesanya versus Dricus. But how exactly would that fight play out? The one big takeaway I had about the fight that I commented on directly after it happened in my last video was, Dricus is a high-level kickboxer. He is, but what makes him so good is his power, his strength, and his durability. Because most of his punches were very wide, very loopy, very telegraphed, and Strickland saw a lot of them coming. Sean's defense was absolutely on point. Du Plessis, for the most part, was having a miserable time landing, but the problem was Sean never made him pay for these huge looping overhands. Sean needed to time his right hands off of Dricus' misses, but because he wasn't doing that, Dricus just kept coming. He kept swinging, and every single time he was getting just a little bit closer to landing. And when he did, it did damage. Now, Du Plessis does not have the same ability as someone like Alex Pereira does when it comes to setting up their punches. So he was never able to catch him super cleanly on the chin, enough to put him away, but he did land. So when you look at Israel Adesanya, a safe takeaway would be that, well, he's going to eat someone like Dricus alive. I mean, Adesanya at his best is a counterpuncher. And if you're whiffing on overhands against him, he's going to make you pay. But the thing is, when you look back at Dricus' fight against Robert Whittaker, he fought very differently there than he did against Strickland. He was not marching forward swinging. He definitely threw some right hands for sure, but his primary attack that fight was the jab. And that is because Whittaker is known for his blitz. And of course, that's how Dricus finished the fight. He caught Whittaker blitzing in, caught him with the jab as he was moving forward, dropped him, finished the fight. Still, you have to give Israel Adesanya the massive advantage in the stand-up. Of course you do. But I'm extremely hesitant to say that I think Dricus is going to be gifting him counters that easily. I think he's going to try to switch up his style. And I think step one is pressure. We know Adesanya has no problem being the guy on the back foot. So Dricus needs to use his power and his durability to make himself enough of a threat that he gets Adesanya backed up to the fence. Then he shoots. Strength is a massive part of wrestling. The stronger you are, the less timing you need. As we saw in his fight against Strickland, if he gets deep at all on any takedown attempts, you're going down. If he clinches up with you, again, you're getting taken down. Now, Strickland showed a really high ability to get back to his feet, but at the same time, Du Plessis didn't work super hard on chain wrestling after Strickland built a base. He chose to disengage because I think he was worried about his cardio. Because as we saw, by the time he suplexed Strickland after he got back up, he could have hit more mat returns if he tried. But that's really taxing to do. And with how good Strickland was at getting back to his feet, I don't believe Du Plessis could have done a ton of damage with his takedowns, which is why he chose to disengage. But the thing about Adesanya is, he is a very tiny 185er. He just is. When he moved up to fight Jan Blachowicz at 205, he weighed in at 200 pounds flat, 5 pounds under the limit. He said before on the Joe Rogan podcast that out of camp when he's real husky, he's about 205. That puts him at a massive disadvantage if Dricus is constantly searching for the takedown. You look at Adesanya's fight with Vettori. Vettori did have moments of success in the grappling against Adesanya, albeit not a ton, but he was able to take him down, control him for a while from half guard, take his back. But Dricus is just so much faster. His takedowns are a lot quicker, and his ground and pound absolutely lethal. A good buddy of mine, Cameron, found this video on YouTube with like 20,000 views of this team grappling event. A Gracie Baja team versus another team. I don't know who they are because Dricus was on that team. And he was the first guy to go. Now, how the format worked was whoever won the match stays on. And they keep going until one team gets completely eliminated. And you know what happened? Dricus ran through the entire team all by himself. Absolutely smashed the entire team. Now, given they were a bit smaller than he was, none of those guys are competing at ADCC by any means. But still, Du Plessis was a one-man army out there. And look, Adesanya, great takedown defense, good get-ups from getting taken down, and great submission defense. He has all of those things. But there's no doubt in my mind, if Dricus clinches up with him at all, he's getting thrown around. And with how heavy his ground and pound is, I honestly see Dricus taking the dub.